Okay, this is the second of 4 total parts that there'll be in the subsistence lecture. Forward. Here we're going to switch from hunting and gathering to food producing. And as I said, we had 3 different types of food producers, and they are listed right here to the right. Food producers. This is the one we're going to talk about right now, pastoralism. Later on, we'll talk about horticulture and intensive agriculture. Excuse me. Okay, we said earlier that food production hinges on domestication, and we got a definition for that, which I already gave you in the previous section. Here it is again. The altering of genetic material of plants or animals by humans for human use. In all of the cases, whether it's pastoralism, horticulture, or intensive agriculture, they are built on domestication. All right, pastoralists of the 3 breed and manage domesticated herds. And here are a few examples of herding animals that people have domesticated. We obviously didn't domesticate every single type of animal in the world, just the ones that were most useful to us and easiest to domesticate. Top of the list is cattle and horses, camels, llamas. Llamas are actually closely related. They're considered camels. They're just New World camels from South America. Goats, sheep, I could add yaks and probably a few other things onto there. Excuse me. Oh, there's an alpaca with pink things on its ears. Those are used to keep track of the animals when they're in herds. You might have seen cows in the United States that have tags on them or brands. They're used in that kind of a way. But these are some examples of herding animals that you might find in pastoralist groups. Excuse me. In most cases, they may have domesticated more than one animal. Whatever they have domesticated, even whether it's one or more, usually it can produce most of their needs, apart from what they can potentially forage in plant life. Moving forward. Land use among pastoralists. We could say that pastoralism has a medium carrying capacity relative to hunter-gatherers and agriculturalists. Excuse me. That is to say, it supports more than foraging, less than agriculture. They can be sedentary or nomadic. Usually there's a certain amount of moving around, and pastoral nomadism is common. There's a particular pattern to pastoral nomadism. It's called transhumance, and that refers to a circumstance where people live in a valley in the summer, in the winter, and they move up into the highlands in the summer. This is a form of seasonality, meaning different things happen at different times of the year. So transhumance is a form of seasonality and a form of nomadism that you find among pastoralists. It consists of people living in the lowlands in the winter, in a valley, and moving up into the highlands in the summer. And they do this so that the lowland grazing areas can recover when there's food in the highlands in the summer. And then when the food dries up in the highlands, going into fall, they can migrate back down into the valley, and the fields have recovered there. So transhumance is a main form of land use. All right, technology. You're going to find things obviously specific to a herding lifestyle. You'll find specialized animals, which are part of the technology. I've gone to the trouble to domesticate different kinds of animals, that is, breed them so that they're genetically different from their wild counterparts and useful to humans. So they may have bred different animals for different tasks. It's part of their technology. You may find harness or tack. Harness is for pulling. Tack is for riding, more or less. You see an example of tack to the right here. You've got a bridle, you've got a bit and reins and a saddle, presumably, underneath that guy. Again, harness is more for pulling. But anything that has that you use to control or keep track of animals. Variable structures. They may be more or less mobile if it's a more mobile group. There's an example to the right of something called a yurt, Y-U-R-T. And you can see that it's backlit, and you can see the internal structure, which actually will collapse in on itself. It's a lattice work, and you can collapse it together. You can take the door off and take the hinges off and the skins off of the frame, fold up the whole frame, and put it on the back of the animals. Having animals gives you an advantage in that you can use them for pack animals. It's P-A-C-K, animals. Pack animals are used to carry other things for humans. So with pack animals, you can carry around a lot more stuff and still be mobile and maintain a relatively nomadic lifestyle. terms of social organization, we start to see more complex societies as the societies get bigger. So we see a more complex social organization with pastoralists than we do with foragers. We start to see the beginning of what we call social stratification. Stratification is, roughly speaking, hierarchy, as there are different levels of people. There's a term that was borrowed from geology. Literally, it refers to the stratification in the earth, different layers of soil and rock under the earth when you dig down through it. But that term was lifted from geology, and it was brought into anthropology and other social sciences and applied to people. So social stratification means different layers of people or hierarchy. A specific sort of hierarchy that we see is often patriarchy. That is, there's a shift to men having more power than women. In hunter-gatherer groups, we saw an egalitarian society in which neither men nor women had more power than the other. Now we're beginning to see the emergence of a patriarchy. Usually men have more power than women. Prestige distinctions become more important in these groups, and that's got a lot to do with the fact that wealth is now possible. Among hunting and gathering groups, there was really no concept of wealth in the way that we understand it. Most of their interest in things revolved around use value. That is, whatever you could use the thing for was what it was worth. It didn't revolve around exchange value, which is what you can get by exchanging the thing. For example, if you had a hammer, you really only need one hammer. Right? You can only hammer one thing at a time. Having a bunch of hammers really doesn't do you any good in terms of use value. Excuse me. On the other hand, we understand things beyond use value, also in terms of exchange value. So if somebody gives you 1,000,000 hammers, you can't use them all, but you can sell them and get the value of them that way. So we have exchange value. Exchange value is emerging among pastoralists. They're no longer simply tied to use value. They can accumulate wealth in the form of animals, and that's fairly convenient because they can walk around. You don't have to carry your wealth. That was a major limitation on the development of the concept of wealth among hunter-gatherers. They were nomadic. They had to carry everything themselves, and so anything you have to carry is a burden. So they wouldn't accumulate too much stuff. Pastoralists, they can have wealth that moves around with them. Once you can accumulate wealth, and inheritance is also an issue. And along with patriarchy, we tend to see the development of patrilineal kinship systems. A patrilineal kinship system, Patrilineal, patrilineal kinship systems. In these systems, you only reckon kin through your male relatives. So you're only related to anybody through your male relatives, not through your female ones. So often, animal wealth in the form of animals would be inherited through the male lines only. Not always, but that is a pattern that becomes more common when we see a transition from hunting and gathering to pastoralism. Okay, that's the end of that section. That's relatively short compared to the other one. I may consolidate. Well, we'll see. I may consolidate the other two or split it into two. Still working out the download times. All right, that's the end of that one. Thanks.